Have you ever felt like if you're not doing something, then you're not worthy or you're not enough? Or if you're not making somebody else happy, then you feel hollow inside? Or do you feel guilty when you're not doing something? Like if you're just relaxing and being, it actually creates negative emotions in your body. If you relate to any of those things, you're going to want to watch this video. Today I'm talking about a belief that gets instilled in childhood, although it can also be a result of long-term relationships in adulthood as well. But it's this belief that I'm not worthy or I'm not enough unless I'm doing. In other words, you feel like you're more of a human doing than a human being. Okay, we're going to talk about this belief. We're going to understand how it gets installed in your subconscious programming, what it does to you in childhood and in adulthood, and last but not least, we're going to learn what is involved with upgrading this belief to a more empowering belief. Okay, so with that in mind, let's get started. For those that don't know me, my name is Michele. I'm a life and relationship coach specialized in complex PTSD, and I'm also the founder of the Thriver School of Transformation, which is a monthly membership where we meet live weekly and we talk about all of this together. So if you feel like that would be helpful on your healing journey, make sure you check out the links in the description box below. Okay, so let's talk about how this belief gets put into someone. And again, that belief is, I'm not enough unless I'm doing for someone else. So narcissistic parents, as we know, narcissists in general, whether they're parents or not, need everyone to revolve around them, right? They are the center of the universe in their broken prism of reality, and everyone else is supposed to kind of live revolving around that narcissist, admiring that narcissist, or if you don't admire them, constantly having them on your mind and living your life to please them. Now, we all know when a child is born, the child doesn't revolve around anybody, but everyone is expected to revolve around the child. They have to. A child cannot meet its own needs, so we have to revolve around a newborn infant and a toddler. They need that and they deserve that. Unfortunately, if that toddler was born into a family dynamic where there was a narcissistic parent, that's viewed as a threat. I know it sounds crazy, but how could an adult be competing with an infant? But that's what happens. So the narcissist's emotions towards that child, rather than having unconditional love, which is what happens normally and naturally in a parent, well, the narcissist doesn't have that process. Instead, they feel jealous of the child. They actually get jealous of the amount of attention that child needs. They get angry at having to put their focus, instead of it being on them, on being on someone else, including on that child. They get angry and resentful. Not only because they're expected to give attention to someone other than themselves, but also because everyone in the family is also doing the same. So the thing about how narcissists install beliefs in children is that it's not done with words. It's not like they clearly say, you are not worthy unless you're doing something. No, it's done on a subconscious level, which means that infant will usually notice that the narcissistic parent is either completely indifferent towards them. Years ago, I did videos on the still face and how narcissistic parents will look at a child with this blank expression and how damaging emotionally it is for that child to be met with that expression. So children will usually either be met with that still face or anger and frustration at having a need. Okay, so in other words, they cry because they're hungry, they say they're hungry, and the parent gets angry. The child on a subconscious level learns, oh, my needs cause anger, and since our brain is hardwired to cause us to move away from pain, the brain will start to say, our needs, our emotions, anything that causes anger is dangerous, therefore we're going to stifle it. We're going to hide it. We're not going to look at it. And the problem is that the narcissist will then reward you Oh, you haven't eaten in 12 hours. My toddler doesn't cry when he is hungry. He's such a good child. He's so amazing. And the toddler that's starved for affection, and food in this case, but let's just focus on the affection. A toddler that's starved for affection and love hears, oh, I made my parent happy. This is what I have to do. They will learn to stifle their needs, not just their wants, their needs, in search for that unconditional love and that acceptance by their parent. And the thing is that it's not because they want the acceptance, it's because they need it. To a child, their caregiver is their means of support, of life support. Without their caregiver, they can't survive. So having their caregiver in their life is vital. And so the brain kind of develops this coping skill of stifle what you need, therefore you make the narcissistic parent happy, therefore they take care of you. And so basically the brain is keeping the parent in the role of safe caregiver, which the child needs to believe in order to feel safe. And it causes the child to focus on what they need to do to make that person happy and to keep them happy. And again, this is a coping skill. So just to rewind for a second, if the child were to not be busy trying to make that parent happy, what would happen is that child would be sitting in the feelings of rejection, not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy, feeling helpless, feeling fear, unsafe, and it would be sitting in those emotions. And that is way too much for a child to be trying to work through and process. You know, no child has the emotional maturity or emotional literacy to be able to process and work through those emotions. It's hard enough in adulthood. Imagine a child having to work through that. It's impossible. So the brain says, rather than feel these feelings, let's get busy in doing. Let's find a solution. So rather than focusing on the feelings, it gets active in trying to find the secret formula to make the parent happy. So the problem isn't that the parent isn't safe. The problem becomes, I need to be a certain way. I need to do so that my parent is okay. And again, all of this takes place under the conscious awareness, right? This is all things that are happening on a subconscious level. And every time the parent rewards the child for denying self, for not caring about his or herself, and for only focusing on them and doing for them, the more that gets hardwired, that I have to do something, I have to be pleasing others in order to feel enough. Okay, so we get how it happens in childhood, right? And we understand that it's our brain's way of trying to keep you safe. It's the brain's way of trying to keep you safe and to not feel those intense emotions of shame, pain, rejection, fear, guilt, things like that. Okay, fast forward in adulthood. So we physically grow, and the clothes that I had in childhood, I cannot wear in adulthood, right? But the beliefs that we had in childhood, we don't outgrow them. They stay rooted inside until we start uprooting and upgrading them. Which means in adulthood, we tend to have that same belief, I need to be doing in order to feel enough. And the way that affects somebody in adulthood is, you know, you're always people-pleasing, trying to do for others, overextending yourself at the expense of yourself, trying to make other people happy. You have very low self-love and self-care. In fact, doing things for yourself makes you feel like you're doing something wrong. It feels uncomfortable and even selfish to care about your needs. So those beliefs, in other words, are still playing out in adulthood, and they wind up attracting people just like the narcissistic parent that installed those beliefs in the first place. Because think about it, a narcissist doesn't want anyone that has needs or that puts themselves on their own list of priorities. They want you to revolve around them. And if your programming is, I don't matter, I'm not enough unless I'm doing for others and revolving around them, then that's like a match made in heaven. And so in adulthood, you wind up having friendships and romantic relationships that are very much like the relationship that you had with the narcissistic parent. So fast forward again, and thankfully to tons of videos and information now out there on the internet, a lot of people are starting to stumble on these dynamics, on these relationship, narcissistic, trauma-induced codependent relationships, and their eyes are getting open. And they're wanting to change and upgrade their beliefs, right? So here's what happens when you start trying to upgrade this belief that I'm only good enough when I'm doing for other people. In order to change our beliefs, it's not just about having the logic or the knowledge of what is different or what needs to change. We actually have to do things differently, which means if I want to feel enough just the way I am and as who I am without having to do for other people, that means I need to stop seeking external validation, and it also means I need to stop doing and allow myself to just be and allow myself to love myself even when I'm not doing anything at all. Now, for anyone that's working on this belief, right about now, you know that that's so much easier said than done, right? We can say it, but when we start to do it, what happens is, you remember those emotions that I said a toddler can't handle? The shame, the guilt, the abandonment, the fear, the helplessness. All those emotions that your brain pretty much took your focus away from and caused you to focus on doing, well, those emotions are still there. And the second we stop doing, those emotions start coming up into the body. And that can be so overwhelming, especially because people with Cptsd tend to be numb. They've been numb for a long time, since again, that was a coping skill. Your brain said, oh, emotions hurt, let's turn them off, right? Well, as you're healing and your body starts to see that you want to heal and that you are able to work through this, it starts giving you the emotions that it's been keeping numb from you. And for anyone that hasn't had emotions in their body for a long time, to suddenly feel them, it can be pretty intense. Not to mention, you start feeling them from the same age that they were inflicted. I know this sounds a little bit weird, but let's just say the abandonment, rejection, and fear that you felt at 3, which was really a life and death situation for you, right? And that's why your brain took over with its coping skills. You feel the abandonment, rejection, the helplessness as if your life depends on it now, even though it doesn't. Because emotional flashbacks, when you're having an emotional flashback, your brain confuses past and present. So you're feeling these intense emotions with the same intensity you felt at 3 years old. And that can be super overwhelming. So it's about learning how to work through these emotions that were stifled, that were numbed out in childhood. It's working through them that's going to allow you to upgrade your belief. And that takes some time. It takes a tremendous amount of compassion with yourself. It takes learning how to show up for yourself when things are uncomfortable and hard. And it's only by treating yourself that way that your brain will allow you to change your belief. It's almost like you're at war with yourself, right? With what your brain thinks is safe for you with what you actually want. And you kind of have to convince your brain that you can handle it now. And that takes time. And it also takes a lot of rewiring. But it can be done. And that's when healing really takes place. It's not leaving, the toxic environment. Obviously, you want to leave the toxic environment, but if you still have the residue of that toxicity inside of you, it's going to show up in your life, and it's going to continue to hinder your ability to feel present in your life and to enjoy your life. So If you struggle with uprooting these beliefs and you feel like you're kind of in a circular healing pattern where you start, you stop, you're in the same place again, make sure you check out the School of Transformation, because that's where you get the weekly support to help you on the healing journey so that you don't keep falling back.